Just keep smiling. Yes, 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 yes. And we are live. So, welcome to one and all. And this is your host for the evening, Anu Krishna. And this is our beautiful guest here, Ashwita Goel. And we'll talk about her a little while later. And yes, if you're wondering where I've been all these days, it's about, connecting each one of you to brilliant speakers from across the globe. That's what we do every week on the Conscious Circle of Excellence, because we believe that each one of us is blessed with a blueprint of excellence. It's sometimes we just sit under piles of, those clouds, and then we realize, oh my God, self-doubts creep in, and we just kind of forget who we truly are. So we connect you to speakers who can come nudge that blueprint of excellence so that you live a life that is filled with joy and you live in abundance. That's what is the topic for the day, living in abundance. And abundance is not just the words that you pick from the thesaurus and then you hear, it's bountiful, it's prosperity. It's about internalizing, like literally every cell in your body starts to scream it. Okay. Now, how does it scream to you? And don't say now, okay, I can't hear, because that's what it means. It's about reconnecting back to your inner self so that you hear that inner voice even clearly. So, from my team at TSC, we welcome each one of you. A good evening to all the viewers in India and from the rest of the world, whoever's watching us, a very warm welcome from the Soulful Exploration. So this is what we're going to be doing, and I will introduce a very, very beautiful, beautiful person. Hi, Ashwita. And yes, Ashwita Goel is based in Bangalore, India, and has 23 years of experience with Reiki and 13 years of experience as a hypnotherapist and past life therapist, a second generation healer who was exposed to a wide plethora of spiritual teachers. She combines ancient teachings with contemporary ideologies. She was introduced to the spiritual pathway very early on, learning meditation and yoga as a little girl. During her early teens, her family was introduced to Reiki, and her mother soon became a Reiki master. So she has spent many years assisting her mother during Reiki classes. After a few years as a software engineer, Ashwita transitioned to holistic healing and took up Reiki professionally also. She teaches Reiki and meditation and facilitates recovery through Reiki and other methods of energy healing, tapping, hypnotherapy. I mean, it's the works. And I guess if you hear her more, if you read her books that are available on Amazon, do connect with this beautiful soul that we are hosting today. So without much ado, we're talking here, Ashwita. Welcome from the TSC. The entire team welcomes you. And we are talking about living in abundance, how to move, how to overcome setbacks, how do you heal your inner child? How is it that you realign to your purpose? This is what we're going to be talking. So the stage is all yours. I'm going to vanish now and keep watching right till the end, because we are going to be taking questions from you that you can type on the comment section where it is live on the TSC Soulful page. We will ask your questions to Ashwita when we are having a conversation with her in just about half an hour to 40 minutes from now. So off I go. Yeah, Ashwita.
Thank you so much, Anu, and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining me. It's a wonderful topic, abundance. Um, my foundation, as Anu mentioned, lies in Reiki, which I realized a couple of days ago, now 24 years ago, while I was still in school. So the idea of law of attraction became popular through the book and the movie called The Secret in 2006. But we had already been naturally practicing that because it's inherently a part of this energy work. already for about 8 years when the book came out. And we had learned over this time that manifestation is tricky. Anyone who's played around with it would know that, you know. The universe has a great sense of humor. You get exactly what you ask for, not necessarily what you wanted, you know. So it's entertaining if you can just step back and laugh with the universe. Otherwise, it can be quite painful sometimes. Like I remember this friend, uh, she became a friend later on, but she learned Reiki with me. And when she learned the level where you could do all of this, it was around June. And she had been out of work from Jan to June that year. And she said, "Oh, okay, so I can ask for something. I want to earn," I think she was MBA, so in those days, it was way back, maybe 2010 or something like that. And she said, "I would like to earn 10 lakhs this year," which was roughly what she was earning in a year. And there was 6 months left, you know. And by July, she got two jobs and she accepted both. She ended up working, I think one allowed her some sort of work from home. I don't remember the details, but she ended up working two jobs simultaneously for the next 6 months. She earned, I think, exactly 9.5 lakhs, something like that, just almost there. The first thing she did the moment the next year came was she quit one job. She said, "I can't do this anymore." Out of respect for the universe, she managed those 6 months because she said, "I asked for this and it's up to me now to honor that." But this is how it plays these games. You often end up saying, "Well, why? What was I thinking? Why was I asking that?" And then, of course, there's the much more fun aspect to it. One of my favorite stories to tell for many, many classes was this friend who was in the US. And in the US, you can see, from very far away when the storm is approaching. They went somewhere for a picnic. And the moment they sit down, they can see the storm clouds approaching. And he's like, "No, this is not okay. We just sat down." So he just looks up at the skies and he's like, "Come on. I want to eat dry. I want to finish my picnic." And that's it. I mean, this is, of course, not witnessed by me firsthand, but from what he said, it rained everywhere except about 10 feet around them. It just poured. But the moment he shut the picnic basket, it poured on them too. So they were wet by the time they got to the car. He did not say, "I want to get home dry." He just said, I want to eat my food in peace." So he could eat his food in peace, you know. So, and then when I shared this story with a student, she said while she was out on her errands for some wedding, she looked at the clouds and she was like, "I want to reach home dry." It rained, she got drenched, but she did reach home dry. So the universe does have a very interesting sense of humor. Now, you get exactly what you ask for, right? And when we started to realize this, we started asking questions. So when I came up with, "Oh, I want this," I would ask, what do you really want behind that?" Because you might not actually get what you want, you might get what you ask. So, for example, I'd ask, would if I want a promotion. What is it you want? Do you want a promotion or is it something else? Okay, okay. I think I really want that 10% raise, because you could end up getting a promotion and a measly raise, or you could end up getting a raise and then that money gets spent in all kinds of frivolous activities, or you end up having a higher rent that year or something. So you want a 10% increase in pay? Fine. Is that what you want? What do you really want that money for? Okay. Okay, I want that money so that I can go for, say, a holiday to Europe this year. And when we went deeper than this is when the breakthroughs started to come. Because when we started to ask, why do you want that holiday in Europe? Because it makes me happy. Why do you want that bigger house? Because it makes me happy. Why do you want that bigger car? Because it makes me happy. Why do you want to do this? Why do you want to do that? Because it makes me happy. So, unless it was basic needs we were looking to fulfill, like, getting your first car so that you don't get drenched in the rain, except for things like that, almost everything came to the same ending because I want to be happy. So, here I want to invite you to pause for a moment and take a look at what is it that you are chasing right now. What is it that you are really seeking from this? What do you want? The law of attraction in reality is just about happiness, creating our lives rather than creating a life that makes us happy. It's about happiness creating our lives rather than creating a life that makes us happy. So it's like sowing a seed and waiting for it to grow. If you plant a weed or some other useless plant, even with the best quality manure, all you're going to get is a weed. And if you plant, say, a ficus, it grows into a ficus. And, especially with a resilient one like ficus, you can forget to water it, you can forget about manure entirely, and it still thrives. So, in the same way, when you sow a seed for manifestation, you cannot get happiness and abundance if you're sowing seeds of lack. And if you sow happy seeds, even if it has limited resources, as in your life does not turn out the way you want to, you know, even if that ficus has limited resources, it grows into a bonsai and it still brings you plenty of joy, regardless of the circumstances. Because when you're happy, when you're already happy, you are in a state of flow. And a lot of people come to me to find out what the purpose of their life is, because the purpose is something you start to implement when you're in the flow every moment. This is not the answer we're expecting to hear. We have to realize that we are not one-dimensional beings. And the purpose of our life is not one-dimensional at all. It can never, ever be summarized into one line. You are meant to heal the world. You are meant to have your own business sort of purpose. You are so much more than your job. And even your jobs can be different. Maybe 5 years you heal the world. Maybe the next 5 years you make a business. And maybe you're just supposed to earn so much money, you own a yacht, and you're not thinking about spirituality at all. Maybe that is your purpose. So your purpose can change from moment to moment. And it's not even that, right? If your vibration changes, your purpose changes too. So it's not even permanent. It's not like when you're born, you have this one purpose and you have to live and, do your best to fulfill it. It does not work like that. The purpose is always changing. You'll understand this more deeply by the end, I think. But just bear with me for now. To put it very simply, your real purpose is to just remain in a state of flow in this moment. State of flow, state of flow. What? What does this mean? I think by now, almost every single person on the spiritual pathway has heard this super cliched line: you are not a human being having a spiritual experience. You are a spiritual being having a human experience. And somehow, this is supposed to be a positive thing for most people. But it has so many, many meanings. It's also very, very true. You are merely here to experience certain things as a spiritual being. And on that level, we don't see things as negative and bad or positive and good. Negative has its own value. Take, for example, Google. Even Google today prefers hiring people. When they did studies and they looked at so many profiles, they realized that they value much more hiring people who've been through adversity and have found and worked their way through it and come out stronger, rather than people who have had easy lives. You see how struggle makes you more valuable? Not always, but it does. Now, why do you think that is? You don't get a diamond without cutting. You don't get gold without putting metal through fire. You don't even get physically strong without pain and sweat. And you do not get emotionally strong if you've been protected from all negative emotions through your life. We're here to learn to be alchemists, to learn to turn shit into manure, as I really like to put it. We're here to experience being human, being flawed, being complete in our imperfections, and perfect in our incompleteness. And our purpose is to surrender to this experience, which is not always pleasant, which is not always what we want. But this is what it means to be in the flow, not resist what we cannot change, to take the action where we can change things. One big misconception that a lot of people have is that if they are happy, they will not do anything. But actually, it's quite the opposite. When you're happy, you want to do things. You enjoy bringing happiness to others. You enjoy adding value to your own life, to the lives of the people around you. When you are happy and fulfilled, you take the right action, you take the right decisions, you live in the flow. And in many cases, not all, but in many cases, this is also where you open up to material abundance. But you see that as a side effect. It is never the goal of this pathway. And this has made me really sad as I've watched it. Material abundance in specific has no correlation with being spiritually conscious. Yes, we have to take into account that what happens in some cases is that people are stuck very badly in being negative for a long time, and they cannot get out of this hole that they've gotten themselves into. It just gets into a negative spiral. So in such cases, opening up to positive thinking can sort of, push them out of that and help them reach some sort of balance. But that's all it is. Beyond that, positivity is a roadblock, not a facilitator. To really be in the flow, we have to learn to go beyond thought itself. Negative thought, positive thought, no thought. That's where the journey begins. Because it's when you go beyond thoughts that limitations start to end and inspiration begins. Then it's not you doing anymore. It's, a lot of people who experience the flow temporarily, some experience in their art, some experience in their work, some experience it during sports. If you talk to them, if you say, hey, great job, and they're like, it wasn't me. It wasn't me that was doing it. Because there's this inherent sense of not being there. I mean, it's kind of strange because you're present and yet you are not there at the same time. So, but coming back to seeking, we seek happiness, or we seek fulfillment outside of ourselves in primarily three ways. We want to know, we want to own, and we want to experience. Everything that you desire usually comes within these three. You want to gain more knowledge, you want to own more things, or you want to experience something new, right? And real, total abundance actually involves none of these. What is it that we're looking for in all of that? What is it that you're really seeking in knowing all of that? What is it that you're really seeking in owning all of that? What is it that you're really seeking in all of those experiences? How about you take a moment and think about it? What is your idea of the ultimate abundance? Think of the best possible scenario of your life. And if this dream were to come true in the best way possible, what would you feel that you cannot feel today in this moment? And this exactly is where the key to our abundance lies. The biggest obstacle in becoming abundant is the postponement of happiness. We're usually raised the same way that we train our dogs, through reward and punishment. We're tamed. And we've trained our minds to function that way. So we cannot imagine a way to live, can exist, where we will function or contribute to the world if there is no reward or no threat for punishment. If we don't act, we get punished. If we act, we get rewarded. And if there's no reward or punishment, why would we act, right? And because of this belief, we develop the habit of postponing happiness. Because we start to firmly believe that if we are truly happy right now, there's no way we can experience expansion, freedom, and abundance. But you see, abundance is in happiness. Abundance is sitting right here in this moment, waiting for you. We just need to release all of this taming, all this forced programming, and go back to being wild in a sense. Have you ever noticed how nature is constantly progressing on its own? Have you ever seen plants trying hard and, yes, I have to get that new leaf out there and stuff like, no, it just exists and growth happens. Haven't we all noticed plants even growing where there's no space or soil, like, plants flowering on the sidewalk, or the people trees that grow out of the flyover, the concrete walls? No effort is needed. Growth is natural. Expansion is natural. We are biologically wired to overcome and sidestep obstacles and make the most of life. We just need to let life happen rather than act out of stress and worry, or even worse, out of panic. The central principle in material expansion and abundance is what many people call guided action. And this is possible when we are genuinely happy for no reason. Not that, oh, this happened, so I'm happy, or this did not happen, so I'm happy. No, I'm happy just because, living in the flow. So when someone comes to me and asks for help in decision making, for example, what I most often ask is, what, which option would you pick if you were already happy? And when I started asking this initially, I expected it to be more complicated, and I was really surprised at how quickly these conversations would end. That's all I needed to do. Which one would you pick if you were really happy? And that's it. It was that fast. So when we make a decision, imagining that the decision will make us happy, when we do that, we are deciding from a space of lack, and we will create more lack. Nothing else, even if it is the perfect decision. Instead, when we are remembering that we can choose happiness regardless of circumstances, we are happiness right now, then that vibration becomes the guiding force, and your whole body will protest a decision that is not in alignment with your vibration and your life. You cannot go wrong when you're just, letting the happiness decide. And that is how you start living your true purpose. Because purpose is not about doing, it is about being. So I hope that makes it quite clear, because I'd like to move on to talking a little bit about the inner child and how that affects all of this. So we're living in increasingly accelerating times. I think we all see that, we all feel it. And for a long time now, the way to inner abundance, the path to the inner abundance has been paved through outer abundance. What do I mean by that? The path that has been the most popular has been people who have chosen to chase their desires, all of their desires. They have had most of their dreams come true. And after all the dreams come true, they realize, oh, I'm still miserable. And that's when they finally get on to the right track. Sometimes, not always, but some of them get on to the right track, and then they begin their spiritual pathway, and then they'll come back and tell everyone, oh, money doesn't make you happy. I know, because I was a billionaire. And it is fair to want the same path. I know at one point I've said the same thing myself. Oh, come on. Like, I'd rather, even Osho said it, right? I'd rather cry in a car than be happy on the street. So there's nothing wrong with wanting more, but how badly do you want it? And is it getting in the way of your happiness? You know? And wanting this path is not so relevant anymore. Because, like I said, it's accelerating times. It is time to wake up. How far are you willing to go? How long are you willing to wait until you come to the point where you say, I'm going to be happy right now? It's time. It can be this moment if you choose. So, we all, most of us anyway, have been happy as children for no reason. And if you look around, we will find that nature is automatically always in the flow until it is tamed. I think a lot of energy healers who can talk with plants will also tell you that even plants that are potted and domesticated behave very differently from wild trees and plants. And of course, domesticated animals have so many more diseases and problems and emotional, like depression and things in domesticated animals, because disease happens a lot more frequently and in a lot more variety after you tame nature. After you're trained to respond only to rewards and punishments, after you've been trained to forget that your natural tendency is to give, to share. A tree just gives, it doesn't think, right? There's no give and take. It does not sit and cry if a murderer eats an apple, for example, or, the pretty girl comes and sits and leaves without eating anything. Just gives. So if we are willing to release this baggage, this training, this taming, this can set us free. And we can work on this on two levels. One is the present, and the other is the past. So, for the present, if we look at the moments in our life where we're acting out of compulsion or out of obligation, for instance, those are moments when we're out of the flow. That is nothing but the inner child unable to assert itself, self centered and angry and unwilling to truly give. What can help tremendously is to go through our entire day and look through the actions we take because we want to, and which actions we are taking because we should, or because we're seeking approval internally or externally. Sometimes it's external people, but so many times we're seeking approval from people that live in our head. So once we look at this list very carefully, what am I doing because I want? What am I doing because I should or someone else wants me to? We realize that a lot of these things we would do anyway. if we set aside all of those ideas of I'm doing this because so and so wants, when you really sit down and work through it, you start to realize that you would have done it anyway. Why? Because we did care for whoever we did this for, or we did see value in those actions indirectly, or it was serving us in some way, making our life easier in some way, fulfilling responsibilities. But you start to realize that you're actually doing it for you. And suddenly, that exact same action brings you into the flow now, because you do it with the awareness that you want to do it for you and not out of obligation or out of compulsion. So that inner resistance dissolves, and even the most unpleasant action in such cases can bring joy, right? So that's for present incidents, present moment situations. It takes time, of course. It's not that you just flip a switch and you say, oh, Ashwita said this today, and tomorrow onwards I have zero resistance and I do everything that I want to do in my way. One of the biggest turning points in my life was precisely this realization when a conversation with a friend opened my eyes, and I really went through my day and I said, oh my God, I do this because so and so. I do my Reiki because I'm a teacher and I should. And I meditate because I want to make my spiritual teacher happy. And I do this because of that. And I exercise because of this. And I don't eat this because of that. I eat this because of this. And for me, it was really powerful. So I stopped everything. I stopped absolutely everything the next day. I said, I will not do one single thing until I want to. And that was the eye opening moment, because I got back to almost everything. And yet everything had changed because now I was doing it for me. So you're welcome to try that if you'd like. Just don't do anything for anyone else anymore. Of course, within the bounds of responsibilities. Um, yeah. So the second thing that we can work on is the childhood memories. So when we were pushed and prodded, for some of us have been pushed and prodded for being happy for no reason, did that happen to you? Were you allowed to just be, or were you told one way or another that you're not enough, that you need to keep striving to be better than you are right now? So if you could do this right now, even, what are the moments you felt really not enough, not good enough? And what are the moments you may have felt abandoned or rejected and you failed to meet expectations? So, working through these memories, you can take the help of therapy, or you can just try to meditate on it if you're already familiar with all of this. But really, going through these incidents, maybe journaling and allowing all the feelings to surface can be very, very useful. And lastly, what I'd like to say is that we need to move way, way beyond affirmations. I want to request you to stop and think for a moment about a hypothetical situation. Imagine that there is a person who says, I love you all the time. I love you. Oh, you're my sweetheart. I love you. You're so sweet. You have such pretty eyes. They bring you flowers and chocolates. But when you're sick, This person, they don't, they can't be bothered to lower the volume while they're watching their TV series when you're craving for silence. They don't take the time out to talk to you when you need to talk to someone. They don't respect your needs and boundaries. Now tell me, what is the value of those words? What does that I love you mean to you now? What do those roses and those chocolates mean to you now? You see, this is what we've done. I'm not saying we must never use affirmations. Just like in a relationship, there is a place for the I love yous. But it's just words, you know? So you can chant, I am healthy, I am healthy, I am healthy. My body is functioning perfectly to the moon and back. But if you are choosing to eat that pastry when you shouldn't, if you aren't healing the emotions underlying your binge eating, you won't get anywhere. If you're chanting, I'm wealthy, and I'm taking these screenshots and making these vision boards, that house and that perfect salary and everything. But if you're taking all those extra tea breaks, if you're skipping meetings or not paying doodling during meetings, or if you're spending frivolously and or lending or borrowing money indiscriminately, you're not going to get very far. And of course, what I'm talking about over here is very external, very materialistic things. Don't eat this, don't spend there, be careful. Like, yeah, something else I was telling a friend recently was someone who has money issues and refuses to be educated about even things like FDs, and forget about hardcore investments. But it was a full grown adult who had zero clue about what FDs are. And I was like, what signal are you giving out to the universe? So there's of course the external, very action oriented, very hardcore action oriented aspect of it. But once you've mastered that, you do need to take a closer look at the subtler signals as well. What are the words you're using? What are the jokes that you're cracking? One of the first teachers that trained under had said a line that I really hold close to my heart. He said, biography becomes biology. So whatever you're repeating over and over, even if you think it's funny, does come true. So be careful. What are the things you're saying over and over? And what are the little choices we make in our lives? Are we postponing sending out that resume? You know, do we choose to play games instead when we're supposed to do something, deliver on a responsibility? Are we choosing to pay attention to the television when our daughter is trying to talk to us? What do you think that's going to manifest in terms of relationships? So the little things here and there, you know, the small signals, like maybe you're hanging out with a friend or talking to a friend on the phone, and there's this inner voice telling you, enough, enough, get back to work or get back to whatever else, you know. Are you listening to that? That is the critical thing. So the more we respect this inner guidance, the clearer it becomes, and the more in alignment we start to live. Our choices are our real affirmations. And I think if we remember that, we'll do pretty well. And abundance is you. think that's all I have to say. And if you have questions, they're welcome.
Thank you so much, Ashwita. That was nice. I think there came a point where I think I got so deeply involved that it started make probably things that I've been doing so far or what I could probably relook at. That's what these sessions do, right? Sometimes you think you've got it right, just the logical mind says, hey, I've got it right, till you hear it from someone else, who has an objective perspective, who's not in the situation, and then you're like, uh-oh, okay, there's something else that I need to look at. So that is what it was doing to me. So that's nice. So I did hear words that resonate very well with me. Uh, I have the same take on affirmations because I've heard people mouth them with absolutely no meaning. And it's not ecological because you're saying something, but what's going on deep within the person is far different, because when you observe the physiology, the breath is saying something else, the words are saying something else. And I said, you're never going to lose weight at this rate because you don't believe in what you're saying. Not even a cell in your body is, even wanting it. Somebody else wants it for you. So you're saying it, so check within yourself, whether it is ecological, what is the evidence that you have to actually, what are the internal resources within you that's going to support you in that journey. And also the number of times you just said doing versus being in the flow, surrender. So it's like music to my ears. So I think I had a good, what to say, gauging of it. But it's so beautiful to hear your experiences your way, because there's always something to learn, right, from your story. And that's very nice. So I have a couple of questions here. So I'm going to have to combine a couple of them so that we are mindful of time. So there is one second, a very pertinent question. I thought I saw it. I don't know whether they've deleted it. Oh, yeah, yeah. It's easy to feel joyful and abundant when we are surrounded by luxuries and performing better than others. Since everything is dependent on the way we manifest, then why are so many of us struggling during this pandemic or any scenario when anyone wants, let's say they want money for better life or they want to just be happy? So I guess this is more in relation to the pandemic. And I picked this question because it might just resonate with many people across the world. So, yeah.
I don't see anything wrong with manifesting lack temporarily, especially in this new age spiritual community. There can be a lot of judgment sometimes. You're manifesting pain. You're, first of all, somebody who does manifest suffering is not in a position to manifest. They have not raised themselves. It's not like people who are really stuck in a negative spiral are capable of manifesting anything,
Mhm.
and uh, suffering during the pandemic, I would say if there is a lot of suffering during the pandemic, suffering, I'm not talking about problems because they're not the same. Problems are stepping stones to success. It depends on how you look at it. But if there is suffering during the pandemic, then I would say it's a very screaming message from the universe to take another look at the principles that you're really embodying.
Choices also.
Because if there is suffering, that means you haven't learned to be in the flow when things don't go your way. Manifestation is not about having your way. It's about disappearing so deeply that the universe's way becomes your way. You disappear. So if the universe says, okay, you're not going to have food tonight, yeah, okay, you're not going to have food tonight. And if that idea of not having food tonight is painful, then you're okay with that pain too. It's not that you never cry or you're never upset, but you're okay with crying. You cry for a whole day and then you're okay the next day.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with pain, there's nothing wrong with suffering. And if you're fighting that, then we need to take another look.
Mm. Okay. Okay. So that makes a lot of sense in what you said, because we are talking about suffering and problem, and I'm glad you differentiated the two. Okay, we have another question here. How do we come out of punishment and reward cycle and be wild, as you said? So I guess we're talking about being in the flow. How is it possible, is what someone is asking here.
Um, Maybe if I was to give you plan, so to say, an action plan. Yes, that's the word I was looking for. I'd say maybe begin with journaling because it kind of goes in stages. So you begin by bringing awareness in retrospect. Oh, I did this today. Oh my God. Yeah, I think that was programmed behavior. Oh, what am I really doing? What do I really want? Like that question, for me, that was the breakthrough question. What do I really want? Right? List all the things that you want. What do you really want? Why are you doing this? So, I mean, if you just do all the things I've already talked about, it gets you there. But uh, maybe you can start with journaling, and then, slowly as your awareness deepens, you will realize 3 or 4 hours later, oh my God, I screwed up. Like there I went again, and then slowly with deeper awareness, you start to realize the moment it's over. And then you realize it while you're making the mistake that, oh, I'm acting for a reward, I'm acting out of fear of punishment, but I can't stop myself. And that's okay. That's part of the process. And then when you go beyond that, then you're starting and then you stop. You're like, no, 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 I'm going to choose differently now. Let me act differently. And then you take an entirely different path altogether. It's not even a temptation anymore. Uh, you're muted.
Yeah, the favorite phrase, I guess, since the start of pandemic. You're muted. Am I audible? I guess that's what we keep mouthing more than it. They are becoming affirmations, let me tell you. That's what's been happening. Okay, I have a question, which is also something that I had also in mind. How can we be content while we are already in a difficult situation? And I'll try to map it on to what I was wanting to ask you as a question, right? So we talked about even inner child. So I'm trying to bring that together, right? Sometimes we don't, let's say abundance can be a faraway thing. It's like, where is abundance? Oh, there it is. I mean, you see people, where is success? There it is. It's not about living it anymore. It's something that we have started to think is out of our reach. So when we talk about difficult situations, like one of the viewers has asked, so we talk about difficult situations. It's also understanding that you said, there's a lesson that we're learning, right? There's a problem, we have something to learn, and then we learn how to navigate, or we overcome, or there's a lesson for us to learn. But let's say someone has lost a loved one, right? There's grief in the family, right? Now I understand there's a process of healing, or there is like people say, time is the best healer, right? I don't know how much of that to believe in, because time is such a, I don't know, it's a man-made concept here. Let's not get into that. But when we are talking about things like this, how, simplistically, I'll ask you is, when a person is going through a difficult situation, let's talk about pandemic, let's talk about grief, let's talk about loss of money, loss of job, or things. Yes, it's definitely, it's good when we are coaching them, when you heal them. We talk about, okay, they're going through that situation, but it's not about just plain and simple saying, okay, let's start being positive about it. Let's see what's the lesson we learned from it. So how do you at that point of time talk about abundance? How do we talk about manifestation? How do we talk about clearing the inner child issues that is possibly making them repeat these patterns? They keep showing up in their life again and again. So I've just combined 2, 3 questions so that we have one beautiful crisp answer.
Well, whoever asked these questions, thank you, because it helps me cover something that I should have. It's not about the lessons. It's not about positivity. The last thing I do, if you ever do a session with me, the last thing you're ever going to hear me say is, what's the best thing that can happen? I'm more likely to take you through what's the worst that can happen. Like I've literally taken clients through, think of the worst case scenario, and you're dying, and like you've never met that loved one. You're so like that you've never met the love of your life, you never made any money, and you're dying, and what are you feeling about that? So there's a lot of people that come to me and say, I'm hopeless, as if that's a bad thing. And actually, no hopeless person is ever going to say that I'm hopeless, because this is just an emotional drama that we're carrying out in our heads. Because as a child, we got what we wanted when we cried, and we definitely got what we wanted if we have relatively caring parents. We got what we wanted when we really cried, not in the sense of a fake drama, but even if your demand was unreasonable, chances are, if you had decent parents, if you really, really cried, you got what you wanted. And subconsciously, we're trying to do the same thing as adults. So we think that if I'm depressed enough, if I'm upset enough, if I'm dysfunctional enough, the universe will finally give me what I want. That's one thing that we do. Another thing that we tend to do is, if I learn my lesson, this is another big spiritual trap. If I learn my lesson, things will get better. No, it's not an exam. Life is not, it doesn't work like that. If I learn this lesson, things will work out. No, they don't. Sometimes a lesson is that situation itself. And I mean, it does get better in a lot of situations, but be hopeless, because there is such a deep, deep freedom in hopelessness. It lets you be present. The moment you have hope, the moment you're thinking about the positive things that can happen, you're already out of the present. You're in the future, hoping, praying. But this, the harder the situation is, the more you need to be present, grounded in the present, to be able to get out of it.
Hmm.
So be hopeless, it's very deeply freeing. And be present. Let the emotions come and flood you over, and feel, think of the, don't get into a loop. You can't. I mean, even Eckhart Tolle says, right, that sit down and decide, I'm going to think about this obsessively, and you you find that you can't. So a lot of people ask me, no, but if I start crying, I just won't stop. And I'm like, you know try me. The more you really take a deep dive into that hopelessness and into that pain and resistance, you'll find that you're actually free. So this is exactly why I wanted to talk on abundance, because I'm so tired of this image being projected as abundance being all about having those 5 Ferraris and those 15 bungalows. It's not that. You can be completely abundant 5 days after you've lost your job. You can be completely abundant, when you're struggling. It is possible to be there, and eventually you will get what you're destined to get. But you don't have to be despondent when things don't go your way.
All right. So this is about being in the abundance, not chasing abundance. It's about
Yes.
being in the flow. It's not about doing something to get to that flow. I mean, that's the difference that we're trying to, let's say, the polar opposites that Ashwata has been trying to actually, through the session, she's been trying to say. And it's such a beautiful word, it's just allow yourself to be, just delve deep. And yes, it's not about running away from pain, but it's about going deeper into it. There's a message. It's about hearing that message. And like I always say, what doesn't kill you only makes you stronger, right? I mean, there is a reason why the great people, the spiritual leaders, or the great men, philosophers, even talked about this, great women as well. So I don't get any feminists killing me. I'm pretty scared of them. So I'm going to, Ashwata, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to play this little video. I want, for whoever's watching here, I want all of you to know that we're going to be having a 24-hour global confluence. It's a virtual global confluence that's happening on the 21st of August 2021. 24 hours, yes. So we are going to be starting from New Zealand, all right, and following the sun, and goes all the way to the west coast of the US and Canada. So we are having wonderful, brilliant speakers from across the world. And what better than, each one of you? And we are going to go live just like this, and wonderful speakers coming and sharing the experiences. And it's called Many Heartbeats, One Rhythm. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Ashwita is smiling. I'm just going to quickly share things so even Ashwita gets, a chance to see what this is. Okay, so just hang on. You know what happens, right? There are these very technical, funny things. They're meant to be doing things at the right time, but they won't. You know how technically funny it is. So, yes, and I'm going to share screen. And here it is. Thank you so much. And that was just a glimpse. We're going to be having more such videos come. We are going to be sharing the profile of speakers. That's what we're going to be doing. So very soon, you are going to see much more of us and what we do. And Ashwita, it's just been so wonderful. And those of you who want to connect with her, you know where, just go and Ashwita Goel on Facebook. She is a wonderful human being. When I spoke with her, and that's something that I missed right at the beginning, she was more than willing to step in and do this. And let's be, fair to each one of us. We come here not because we look pretty. It's a different thing. We always look pretty, but it's about how do we impact. Personally, Ashwita, I always believe the path, the journey that I am, and what the work that I do, whether it's through, wellness retreats or curing wellness experiences, it's about thinking, okay, this feels very right. It feels very ecological to me. It feels that this is my calling. And I've just literally have been living it. That's the thing that gets me out of bed every morning. And that's what I rise to and step up, show up, no matter what it is. And that's why living in abundance made so much sense to me, saying, yes, this is what these are certain things that I can still tweak And it's so wonderful because there's one belief. I won't say it's a belief, but there's something that I say, that even if I have managed to impact one soul during my earthly time, I think I've earned a rightful place here. That's something that I keep telling myself over and over again, so that I don't get too greedy. It feels good, because remember, we're talking about ripples of change, right, people? We are talking about impacting one human being. And now don't go and get all, I know people call and say, how am I going to impact? I say, just smile at another human being. That's it. That's your impact. That's what you can do. You know it. Hug a person, say that you love them, call somebody. There's so many different ways of impacting people. So that's about getting, even through this confluence, even through the conscious circle of excellence that we call speakers, like Ashwita is here. This is what we're doing. So thank you so much, Ashwita. There's so much in this topic. Okay. And let's hope that the viewers call in, tell us they want you back. We'll do a part 2, right? We'll get you back, right? Because
Absolutely.
I am sure there are more questions, because there was some right here, but we have to be mindful of time. If there are many more, I will email them to you, and you can share the answers, and then we'll just put it in the comment section. So thank you. And for those of you, remember, and Ashwata, yes, 21st of August, please, please come back, right? Thank
Absolutely.
you. And for
Thank
my
you so
entire
much.
team, thank you so much. The higher in me bows to the higher in you. Thank you. Love you. Okay.